So, folks, as many of you might recall, we just finished part 1 of Whatifalthist, going over explaining Jewish civilization just as a concept, and it's real bad. I just really want to emphasize that it's real bad. I went and drank a bunch of whiskey, and now we're going to continue on to part 2. And frankly, this is probably a better way to analyze what the fuck he's on about. I feel like I am sufficiently on his level now. Here we go.
In the other video, I spoke about a concept I invented called the master key.
Fuck, we're literally like 2 seconds in. We're literally Guys, he invented it. He invented it. I'm buried too early on this one. Holy shit. All right, cool. Okay. I like that there's, by the way, just like a magic wand over an empty book here to demonstrate the concept.
Which is another term for a skeleton key.
No, those aren't the same thing. They're literally not.
Where the master key is once you've studied a complex topic enough, and you can simplify the soul of that topic into a single sentence, which can explain incredible complexity about it.
Wait. So, it's not that you don't know a lot about a topic, you're just, you're just summing it up for people. Okay, yeah, totally. It's when your understanding is so utterly complete that you can just say a sentence about it and it's correct. Totally, bro. Yeah, 100%.
The master key for the Jews is that they believe they are God's chosen people.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't fucking ready. I wasn't ready. What? Oh, God. Oh, fuck. Oh. Oh, nobody was ready. No one could be ready. Every single sentence takes us further from God.
Without understanding that, none of the Jews' actions will make sense.
Literally every second. Literally every second. Every second. Every sentence. Holy shit. I was not ready. Oh my God. Virilian, thank you very much for the 10 gifted tier 1 subs. And also, simultaneously, fuck you. As you know, I made a deal. I made a bargain with Dormammu. Now I need to drink literally the worst alcohol to ever exist. And I poured myself too much. Oh, I apologize for the reaction I'm about to have, because this is truly the most foul-tasting liquor I've ever had in my life. Oh, God. Truly, truly vile. The forbidden swill. Virilian, thank you for the 10 gifted tier 1 subs. And I cannot recommend that you avoid this enough. This is terrible. Do not buy it, even as a joke. I don't want to sip it because it's literally vile. It is vile horseshit. It does not taste like Doritos nacho cheese. I'm gonna buy it? Ugh.
The Greek genre of tragedy is predicated upon the idea that for the great, their greatest strength is also their downfall. This is foundational to Aristotle's entire philosophy, and you can see it play out with the Jews as well. That
What? The fuck are you talking about? Yeah, this idea was really key to understanding Aristotle, but like it's also really important for Jews as well. What? They're totally unrelated to whatever Aristotle was doing.
Their greatest strengths and their greatest issues comes from their belief that they are God's chosen people. The Jews have historically believed themselves to be superior to other peoples. The problem with this is that it was true enough in that the Jews were gradually able to excel in nearly every field.
Dude, okay, now, like, I know it's been racist up to this point, but now we're going super racist. Okay, like we've been racist in part one. Now this is we've gone into super racism. Okay,
whether economics, family life, community, religion, science, and philosophy, that it fed into the Jews' delusions while filling other nations with murderous envy.
Oh, that explains everything. What?
If the Albanians said they were God's chosen people, we just say that was adorable with contempt mixed in. But when a population says they're God's chosen people, and then their tiny religion becomes world conquering, with now a majority of the world.
Dude, this, okay, we're well into, yeah, we're deep into swastika territory. This is deep Nazism, because he's basically saying the Jews already conquered the world. They already conquered the world. They own it. You know, it's their world. Yeah, we're into like protocols of the elders of Zion territory now.
World's population following the Jewish God, it gets more arguable. The will of God is a dangerous and chaotic thing. God is a reflection of all things, and thus the ability to draw from it is both incredibly powerful and...
Okay, real quick. Can anyone tell me what they're wearing on their heads here? Like, what are these? Are these, like, lamps? They, like, little, like, are they headlamps? Are they flashlight things? Like, what are these things? Because I see 3 people wearing them. I've seen other people wear them as well. Some kind of optical thing. There's a scroll of scripture in this, in the, like, the little box. Interesting. Can anyone tell me like the purpose? Like I assumed they were cameras, like Rhymejack in Twitch chat. A tefillin? I've never heard of this. This is wonderful news. I really like learning things. What is this? Yeah, it's totally what they're wearing. Okay. Or phylacteries. Oh, okay. I didn't know that's where the term came from. Are a set of small black leather boxes with leather straps containing scrolls or parchment inscribed with verses from the Torah. Tefillin are worn by adult Jews during weekday or Sunday morning prayers. In Orthodox and traditional communities, they are worn solely by men, while some Reform and conservative Masorti communities allow them to be worn by Jewish adults regardless of gender. In Jewish law, women are exempt from most time-dependent positive commandments, which include tefillin, and unlike other time-dependent positive commandments, most halachic authorities prohibit them from fulfilling the commandment. That's really interesting. Oh, the singular is the tefillah. They are intended to fulfill the Torah's instruction to maintain a continuous sign and remembrance of the exodus from Egypt. Well, that's really interesting. I had no idea this was a thing. And this is really cool. And I love learning about it. Again, I find, to like just kind of clarify where I come from, like I find it fascinating to learn about how other societies kind of structure their religious beliefs, you know? I think it's really cool. I think it's interesting. I think it poses some interesting questions. And like I don't know, it kind of plays into this idea that I was talking about earlier between segments about, I just like human beings. I think human beings are just wonderful little guys, That's a wonderful tradition, and I like it. All right, let's move on.
Thus, the ability to draw from it is both incredibly powerful and dangerous. I think that a lot of the ritual prescriptions and obsessive taboos of Jewish culture come from having some desire for psychological stability with the knowledge that they are this nuclear reactor for divine inspiration in their worldview. One of
I'm sorry, to Jewish people, they're spiritual nuclear reactors? Yeah, like genuinely, I do have to try and parse, like, how much does this guy believe what he's saying versus how much is he just saying words, like he's just stringing them together and like they don't actually mean anything. Like, because to me, when you string those words together, that doesn't mean anything. That's nonsensical. I know he believes all of it, I guess. I'm just like confused at how it actually functions.
Things the Jews have a tendency to do is call the bluff on civilizational cycles.
Oh, God. I'm not going to read this one in a funny voice. The three civilizational cycles. 1. 3000 to 1200 BC. Pyramids to Bronze Age collapse. Egypt, Mesopotamia, Indus Valley, Hittites, etc. 2. 1200 BC to 500 AD. Troy to Justinian. Makes sense, I guess, as like a... if you're going to pick like an arbitrary point, I guess. I will just point out, again, and I feel like this needs to really be pointed out, this is like an extremely Western view of society, right? Like China had like its whole, like an entirely different thing going on. Like Japan was existent by this time, like as like a nation state. We're talking like there were so many other things going on in the world, as well as like not even touching like South and North America. You had like cities rivaling London in North America by like 500 BC, you know? This entire idea here is just kind of weird and arbitrary. And I just really want to hammer that home.
Explain this, I have a system based off Spengler in which we are at the end of the Third Age, much like Lord of the Rings.
Da, 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 da. It's just like Lord of the Rings. I can't let you go, Frodo.
With each age lasting a little bit over 2,000 years. The first cycle, that we know of at least, started with the rise of the River Valley civilizations in 3000 BC and ended with the Bronze Age collapse in the 12th century BC. The second cycle, which formed out of the rubble of that Dark Age, involved the Indian, Chinese, Greco-Roman, Persian, Jewish, and Phoenician civilizations. These are the Axial Age civilizations, concentrated around 40 degrees north, and they fell apart with the collapse around the time of the fall of Rome or the Han Dynasty. Finally, the third cycle is the West, Orthodox, Islam, Japan, and Southeast Asian civilization, in which they formed in the Dark Ages, while they'll probably get wiped out by Mouse Utopia or nuclear war.
Man, this guy has like an entire conspiracy theory about Mouse Utopia. This idea that like, if you make things too good, civilization will collapse. That's like the entire premise is based on like a series of experiments with like mice and like giving mice like everything they could conceivably want. And then like mice society collapses. It's really fucking stupid. And he applies it to human beings. This guy name drops Mouse Utopia like all the time. All the time. That's such bullshit. Well, didn't you know that human beings and mice are the same?
Or genetically engineered diseases. I don't know, man. In the end of the...
that's where we can find some common ground, because I don't know, man, either. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Genuinely, what the fuck are you doing? You have a map that says world civilizations, and it's just Latin America, and Latin America, I guess, is just all of South America, and Mexico, and Cuba, but then you have the West, and that's America, parts of Canada, and then Europe, And then you have Orthodox as an entire civilization, which, like, what the fuck does that mean? I know you mean, like, Eastern Orthodox, but that's not a civilization, okay? And then you got the Highland something. I can't make it out. The resolution is too bad. Then you've just got Japan, China, India. Oh, sorry. The West is also South Africa and Australia. And then you've got Malay and Islam and Sahel. So, you know, like all of the world's civilizations, I guess, if you're a dipshit.
The first cycle, Judaism formed as a reaction to the degeneracy of the Bronze Age world as we...
Okay, I'm going to have to request some citations. If you're going to make that claim, back it up. Like, that's a big claim to make. Like, Judaism, like one of the core Abrahamic religions formed as a result of the degeneracy of the Bronze Age world. Prove that. Prove that hypothesis. I would love to see the evidence you have of that. Do you have firsthand accounts? Do you have writings? Do you have philosophical treatises? Treaties? There we go. I don't know. Back up that claim with anything whatsoever, you know?
Spoke about before. In the second cycle, the Jews formed Christianity as a reaction to the issues with the decaying classical civilization.
So I grew up as an evangelical Christian, okay? The idea that the Jews just were like, well, we have to form Christianity now. It's time to do it. You all know, like that's insane. That's just like an insane person's recollection of what happened. Also, Cat Bingo Rising Revengeance. I keep thinking that the first word of your comment every time you comment is revengeance. So I tried to read it as a revengeance. That sucks. And like, yeah, revengeance would suck. So like, I just kind of blinked at it a little bit, but it makes sense now. Is he saying just random words? Kinda? Except that he's also completely and utterly delusional. So like, he believes all of this shit.
People might be triggered by me saying this, but the Jews invented Christianity because it's obviously true.
I mean, in the sense that Christ was a Jew, sure.
Christ was ethnically Jewish, as were all the apostles, and they worshiped the Jewish God through a Jewish religious structure. Christ saw himself as repairing Judaism to return it to its old roots, which had been forgotten. The majority of the Jewish community rejected Christianity, but Christianity is an extension of Judaism in one form or another.
Yes, that is why it is considered an Abrahamic religion. In fact, the first Abrahamic religion. That is why it is in that category.
Watch the video I made explaining early Christianity or classical civilization if
I would rather cut off my thumbs.
If you're interested, but Christianity was a rejection of the brutality of the Greco-Roman classical civilization. At the same time, Christianity is theologically as indebted to the Greeks as it is to Judaism, since so much of Christianity is from Greek philosophic or religious concepts. The biggest demographic for developing Christianity were Greek-speaking diaspora Jews. In a society in which 1/4 of the population were slaves, without legal rights, where men were slaughtered in the gladiatorial games for entertainment, and where Rome held the world under its boot, Christianity stood for universal love, a society based off morality and not extraction. Christianity ultimately destroyed the classical world, replacing it, so the Romans were right to fear the Christians and see them as dangerous radicals.
What are you talking about? The Emperor of Rome embraced Christianity. That's why that happened. Like, it didn't end the Roman world. Rome continued post-Christianity. There
were a huge amount of Jews in the Arabian Peninsula at the time of the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay, it's fine.
And Muhammad was a merchant, so he dealt with a lot of Jews. And if you look at the theological structure of Islam, it's closer to Judaism than it is to Christianity, since they were both developed by Semitic herder peoples.
This is like the smoothest brain bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm not I wouldn't call myself a Christian anymore, but like I have an educational background in that like uh theological background, right? Like I have that education in me. And like this is bizarre as fuck as a way of just like interpreting these religious ideas. Like what are you doing?
And there was a lot of cross mixing between Jews and Muslims in the first few centuries because they had mutual respect for the others. So on top of this, as Islam worships Yahweh or the God of Abraham, out of the three largest religions in the world, Islam, Christianity, and Marxism, they all ultimately stem from Judaism.
Explain how Marxism is a religion, please. I've been waiting this entire video to figure out what you mean by that. You haven't even tried to explain it.
Meanwhile, for the third cycle, the one which is operating today, the Jews invented Marxism, which is
yes, the Jewish political science of Marxism to conquer the world. What are you doing, man? What's wrong with you? Do you not know what Marxism is? This is literally a neo-Nazi talking point. Judeo-Bolshevism, it's literally a neo-Nazi thing. Like, what are you doing?
To our society what Christianity was to the classical world. Although
when he says that, what he means is Christianity overthrew Rome. He's talking about communism as like an overthrowing ideology. Fuck this guy. Real Radham, thank you for the raid. Welcome, everybody.
I'm not insinuating that Marxism and Christianity are equally virtuous. The Jews have a tendency of making cultural movements greater than they themselves, which later turn on them, which was true for both Christianity and communism.
Oh
then
my God.
It became taboo to say that the Jews developed
I'm taking mental damage as we speak.
them. However, Marxism was developed by an ethnic Jew from a family of rabbis. Marxism was made by a Jew, but leftism as a whole was not, since most of modern leftism stems back to France at the time of the French.
Is he calling Christianity a Jewish conspiracy? The answer to that is yes. That is what he's doing. Not only is Christianity a Jewish conspiracy, but so is communism. Communism and Marxism are Jewish conspiracies as well.
Revolution. However, Jews were also vastly disproportionately communist, especially in certain contexts like the Russian Revolution, postmodernism, or mid-20th century American leftism. Communism stems from how the vast depersonalization, urbanization, feminization, and loss of religion caused by the Industrial Revolution created these enormous dissatisfied.
This guy has over 700,000 subscribers. This guy is getting close to 750,000 subscribers on YouTube. And he's posting about the global Jewish conspiracy that has taken place over the course of the last 3,000 years. Fuck, man.
Populations, which could be easily manipulated to destroy society. Communism, much like the early Christians, weren't seen as being religions at the time period they formed, but rather atheism, since they're formulated so differently to the previously understood religions. But both communism and Christianity really are religions. At the same time,
please elaborate at all. I would love to hear your thoughts. That would be such a great thing if you explained that thought process, even in the tiniest possible way.
Communism, like early Christianity, acted as a force of social anarchy, poking in the pain point of the older society.
What do you mean by that? Like, communism is the embrace of a stateless, classless, moneyless society. What are you talking about when you say that? When you invoke that idea, what are you going for? Because I have no idea.
I've also said this before, but I want to point it out again, is that you can't draw a one-to-one relationship between the Jews and communism or the left, in the same way you can't for Christians either. In the same way the Christians became mostly non-Jewish fairly quickly and then persecuted the Jews, the communists did the same. Stalin horrifically oppressed the Jews and was about to genocide them before he died. The modern left is horrifically anti-Semitic now, regularly justifying genociding the Jews.
What? I'm sorry, fucking what? The modern left is trying to genocide the Jews? Citation? Citation needed? Maybe? Chat. Now, maybe it's because you guys have forced me to drink quite a bit of this Doritos liquor. Am I missing something? Because that sounds fucking crazy. Is it me? Have I imbibed too much liquor? Or is this just nonsensical? Doritos has liquor? No, this is empirical, which distills things into liquor. And for whatever godforsaken reason, they made the worst alcoholic beverage known to man, which is this Doritos liquor. It just tastes like the worst vodka mixed with the worst corn chips. Disgusting. Much like the anti-Semitism in this video. Free Palestine is being interpreted as genocidal. I figured that was kind of the thrust of this, but this is water, Johnny Ramo. I'm being responsible.
I find it crazy that when I went to school, we had years of anti-Holocaust programming, and now those very same people, or leftists, are now actively supporting the Intifada. It's just the mental disjoint. But
what Antifada? I'm sorry, there's not an active Antifada right now. What are you talking about?
Back on topic. At the same time, the Jews are incredibly overrepresented in literally everything, not just left-wing politics. The Jews are like other groups, but more. I like to joke it's a struggle to find anyone who's neither Jewish nor gay on the far right today. The degree of wisdom Judaism selected for as well—
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, on the far right, you either find Jews or gays. What the fuck are you talking about? Genuinely, that's one of the most anti-Semitic things I've ever heard in my life. Also, again, I don't think you were being taught anti-Holocaust rhetoric from Intifada members. What are you talking about? That just broke me. It broke me too, and I don't know what to do about it. There's still 20 minutes of this video left. Sorry, 17 minutes of this video left. Holy shit. What possible additional points could you make? Is that Antifa? Lady Raincloud, I think he's talking about the Intifada, which is the Palestinian uprising. So he's not talking about Antifa. He's talking about the Intifada with an I instead of the AN, or it's IN instead of AN. It also doesn't make sense if you talk about the Intifada.
Well as their distance from other cultures provides a degree of objectivity through which the Jews could analyze other societies in order to have the ability to create these enormous sociological breakthroughs. I don't think it's a coincidence that the intellectual innovations which broke down the high modernist, Victorian, mechanistic, rational model of the world were—
Yeah. It's not a coincidence that Einstein was a Jew. Of course, he was part of a larger agenda. Don't pay attention to what he thought.
Were Jewish. Freud showed a subconscious psychology motivated by sex, while Einstein showed a universe—
Oh, I have a perfect soundbite for this, actually. I haven't gotten to use this yet.
Sometimes Dinesh, a genocide is just a genocide.
where space and time were the same, which could get ripped up. Both of them demonstrate a mental flexibility you could see from their ancestors wielding the Kabbalic mysticism rather than the—
I'm sorry. saying that phrase while showing a picture of Einstein. Are you fucking implying that like nuclear weapons are Jewish mysticism? Like I'm losing my shit here. Like that can't possibly be what you mean, right? You think like nuclear weapons are goddamn like Jewish magic? Are you fucking serious right now? You're like, the reason the Nazis stopped researching nuclear energy is because they thought it was a Jewish science, and you're like sitting here being like, actually, it's not Jewish science. It's just fucking Jewish magic. Are you fucking serious right now? I'm losing my shit. I'm losing my fucking shit. Holy fuck. How is this dude not banned for breaking YouTube's terms? I have no fucking idea. Nuclear weapons are the pinnacle of Solomon's magic. Yeah, no kidding. Holy moly. I don't know how to respond to this. I wasn't expecting like someone to be more anti-Semitic than goddamn Hitler. Holy fuck. This guy has literally, and I'm not shitting you, 30 times the number of subscribers that I have. Sorry, did I say 30? I meant 70 times. This guy has 70 times the number of subscribers I have, and he's shouting to the world how Einstein was wielding Jewish magic in order to create nuclear weapons. I am going to lose it.
The Northwest European philosophy, which had become highly mechanical. Part of the reason...
Yeah, of course. A very mechanical Northeast European philosophy.
The Nazis, an entire lifetime of German philosophy, hated the Jews was that the Germans realized that the only actual competitors for the direction of the future of thought or intellectualism against the Nordic peoples were the Jews. On the highest level of practically religious abstract thought, which determines your entire worldview, you had either Nordic or Jewish thinkers in the 19th and 20th centuries. There's a certain dualistic irony that after the Nazis killed the Jews in the Holocaust, Nordic philosophy and vitality died as much as the Jews did.
What the fuck is he saying? Hey, remember how the other day we talked about numerology and flawed pattern recognition? You guys remember that? We talked about how like basically there are people who have like absolutely broken pattern recognition like software. This is the end result of that. You know, Brutus Magnuson.
Here's more Soros bucks to the fancy Hebrew magic computer machine. All modern science is woke.
This is essentially like the end result of like pattern recognition gone awry. This is like when people are like, you know, doing numerology, but it's in history. It's just, hey, this thing seems similar to this thing, and that thing seems similar to this thing. And so when you put that all together, that gets genocide. So that makes sense, right? Like that's, you know, that's how that arrived at a genocide, and that's how this results in genocide. And it's just like, you need actual reasons to come to your conclusions. Your reasons can't be just, it fits a pattern. You actually have to have data that backs up your like thesis, your hypothesis, you know? And like this guy just doesn't have data. He just kind of seems like he's grabbing at anything that backs up his preconceived notions. Like that's my perception of Whatifalthist, okay?
Greeks and Romans had a similar feeling in the ancient world with the Jews. However, there are several cognitive traits you see in Jewish philosophy due to believing they are God's chosen people. One is
the genetically driven God's chosen traits, of course.
Is messianism, which leads to delusion. In the centuries after,
and you know, he does speak from a position of knowing what delusion looks like. So, you know, I believe him.
After classical civilization's rule, the Jewish religious leadership were constantly embroiled in religious experiences that the current world was about to end. They had these prophecies that a new Messiah would arise and result in the Jews conquering the Roman Empire, which was true, just not how they thought. However, this resulted in the Jews launching hopeless revolts against far greater
Yeah, this general philosophical concept is what led to the Jews doing revolts against powerful empires. Absolutely, not the material conditions that arose during their like second-class citizenship in a variety of different social contexts and civilizational contexts, but rather just it was their destiny in a sense. Like, Jesus Christ, the anti-Semitism is crazy.
Colonial empires, which the Jews had zero chance of ever winning, except when it worked out under the Seleucids. This was since they believed if they followed God, he would grant them victory. This is the origin of why Jews face so many depredations under foreign conquerors, including multiple mass expulsions out of Israel, including under the Babylonians and Romans. Past a certain threshold, the foreign conquerors got tired of the Fifth Revolt and genocided the Jews. I'm Irish, and so I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, since we—
What are you talking about? I'm Swedish, so I'm a sucker for this kind of content. No, I'm not. Rudyard literally has no analysis here. It is just historical numerology, and I mean that in the most derogatory sense possible.
We also have a thing for hopeless revolts against foreign conquerors. However, it made the Jews seen as incredibly intolerable and practically insane at the time. On top of this, the Jewish belief that they were God's chosen people, with their God being the one true God, was intolerable for foreign conquerors. The Romans were incredibly tolerant as ancient empires went, while the Jews and Christians were practically the only religions the Romans persecuted, since the Romans could tolerate anything except those who could not tolerate the Roman gods. Judaism is possibly the most feminine of the major world religions.
What does that mean? You say that as if you've built up like a premise and you're backing it up? Like you've built up a series of facts and you're arriving at a conclusion, but like there's no fact pattern there. You're just making a claim without any kind of backup whatsoever. And I know that this won't be like my most compelling video. Like, I'm aware of that, right? Like, I'm a bit tipsy right now, but like, understand that I'm like tipsy as fuck. And these statements are nonsensical. I'm able to follow to like where he's trying to lead like his logical conclusions. And he's talking like it's a logical conclusion, but it's absolutely fucking not. Not whatsoever. This is insanity. It'll be funny though. That's true.
In that its emphasis on submission to an irrational God, it follows lots of ritual prescriptions, and it values family and community above all else. On top of this, the idea that if you
super feminine
follow the religious rules, things will work out, not prizing independence or strength as much as other cultures. When you look at Jewish history, they normally utilize feminine indirect evolutionary strategies to survive, since they've been so physically threatened for their history that they play into feminine strategies, which were developed in order to counterbalance women's physical weakness versus men. Once you get further into the world the Jews indirectly made, that of the huge monotheistic religions, you see a similar dichotomy. In an era in which every major religion waged religious wars, the Jews were just too easy a target. They were wealthy, couldn't militarily defend themselves, were spread out all over, were universally disliked, had high in-group loyalty, have actively made themselves different from other cultures.
This is literally just neo-Nazi talking point. Like, literally, you go to, like, /poll on 4chan, like, this is what you find. It's just, like, irrational hatred and bigotry.
Are an easy outgroup to scapegoat, and were quite openly arrogant about
This video is somehow 13 minutes longer than this.
stating their superiority. The brutal answer for why the Jews have faced so much discrimination in so many lands has been there's historically been every reason to hurt the Jews and very
Holy shit! What?
few not to.
Yeah, it's just logical to genocide them. They're just, they're thousands of years more advanced than us. It's just logical to do it. Fuck you, Rudyard. Genuinely, holy shit. He's literally arguing that, actually, it makes total logical sense to try and kill them. They're just so much better than us. What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? Why would you do that? This is literally like white supremacist terrorist shit. And I'm not even joking. This is like the kind of content that radicalizes someone to becoming a white nationalist terrorist. Jesus. Genuinely, and I do mean this. I'm going to link it in chat. If you guys want to report this and get it taken down, that would probably be for the best. Holy moly, is this bad?
Over the course of centuries, cultures default back onto
I'm sorry, making an entire video about how actually it makes total sense to want to wipe out the Jews is insane.
Anti-Semitism when times get tough. Part of me muses for literary purposes if Abraham in the Arabian desert 4,000 years ago saw some semblance of the future of his people when he signed that contract with God. I wonder if he stared into the future, knowing his people, by saying they were God's chosen people, would open themselves up to a world of hurt. That this would create a cycle in which the Jews would face suffering, it would bind them closer to God and their community, only to be batted onwards for the cycle to restart. In this music...
Ooh, baby. Wow. I want to report the timestamp. The timestamp...
back onto anti-Semitism when times get tough. Part of me muses for literary purposes, very few not to. Over the course, been every reason to hurt the Jews.
3854 is the timestamp.
Reliably used to reach certain ends. Depth and spirituality stem from suffering, in that suffering is the burning away of weakness, which allows one to reach the divine. Perhaps the deal is something like that the Jews, by putting themselves in such a vulnerable position, ended up in an incentive in which they faced enormous suffering. Perhaps said suffering also allowed the Jews to tap into enormous spiritual depths, which made them a vessel for religious breakthroughs. Part 3, the Ghetto. I'm not really part of the whole leftism is Judaism argument, which, as I explained in my video on the anthropology of the left, you see a wide variety of different groups, also pivotal in the left's development, between the French Calvinists, bureaucracy, and women. However, the Jews are still disproportionate, and even more so in certain subsections of leftism, such as postmodernism. Most American Jews are now more culturally leftist than Jewish, since Jews, for the most part, have assimilated into the urban monoculture, which is experiencing cultural and demographic collapse now.
So Jews assimilated with the urban monoculture, and now the culture is just imploding. It's dying because of that. Cool.
I think this is a useful way to look at an interesting anthropological analysis of diaspora Judaism. What does this show about how the Jews lived that gives them this modern political preference? In the period after the Roman expulsion, in which Jews were forced out of Palestine, they then scattered across the whole world. There were Jewish populations hugging the Mediterranean basin, alongside many in Iraq or even further east. Later on, they migrated to Europe and America. If you're more interested, watch the previous video I released on the different Jewish diasporas. I've read
Oh
enough
my God.
histories
No,
of the
thank
Jews
you.
that I'm starting to notice patterns in how they're written. After the ancient period, in which you have lots of battles and emperors, in the period after the forced Roman expulsion and before the Industrial Revolution, you struggle to find anything going on in Judaism besides religion. I call it the boring middle, when the Jews were living in isolated ghetto communities, holding on to their old religion with all their force.
Yeah, just the boring middle of being shoved into ghettos and discriminated against for no reason. Cool, 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 cool. This is getting increasingly uncomfortable and anti-Semitic. Who is this again? This is Whatifalthist.
The Jews lived in shtetls or ghettos, a word stemming from the Jewish ghetto in Rome, or self-enclosed communities of Jews who lived completely isolated from the local Gentile populations, normally walled off so there's as little intercourse as possible. The ghettos were self-governing,
Okay.
operating under their own law, and for the life of an average Jew, practically nothing of importance occurred outside the ghetto. After the diaspora, the Jews became an almost entirely urban culture, almost never owning land. Urban populations were never sustainable in the pre-industrial period, and it's kind of a mystery how the Jews were able to maintain a stable population as an almost entirely urban nation. Every city in the pre-industrial world was a demographic sink. And it's still true today for different reasons, but in the pre-industrial...
Does he have a big channel? This guy has 710,000 subscribers. This guy is literally 70 times bigger than I am. This video has 150,000 views.
Industrial era, it was because the amount of diseases concentrated in cities killed people off faster than they had children, especially given how crowded cities were. And it's a mystery how the Jews were able to maintain their stable population, not gradually going extinct, while almost being entirely urban. And you wonder how many of the Jewish religious, dietary, and health obsessions stemmed from trying to lower the disease death rate to not face the normal population decline seen in cities. The Jews were more connected to their continent-spanning ghetto networks than
the continent-spanning ghetto networks, they're just so powerful, you guys. You know, the continent-spanning network they had. It was just so powerful to be marginalized in medieval society. Fuck this guy.
The local populations a mile away. This created mutual suspicion between the Jewish and Gentile populations. There's a few interesting elements of ghetto life. One was that they were these sort of strange artificial cultures that stemmed from never having to govern or protect the regions they were in and with no connection to the land. Other cultures developed strong hierarchies, aggressive warrior cultures based off honor, aristocracies, or peasant cultures rooted in the earth. The Jews didn't, and much of the current issues of the delusion of many Jewish thinkers in the modern world.
Yeah, you know, some weird potato. Genuinely, I find this fascinating from like an anthropological perspective, but like horrifying from the perspective of someone who has to like live through it. So like on the one hand, it's fascinating to me. Like I'm fascinated by this man. On the other hand, I am utterly and completely horrified from the perspective of someone living in this particular time. Does that make sense?
Is they're subconsciously projecting the social structure of the Jewish ghetto, which existed in a very specific historic context that can't be...
It did. And you're just kind of taking it out of that context, aren't you?
...be replicated elsewhere. There's an interesting book called The Ordeal of Civility, which looks at how Jewish thinkers from the early industrial era, such as Marx, Freud, or Leo...
I'm sorry, I need to look up who wrote that. He's been described as a brilliant yet eccentric critic of contemporary American Jewry. And I just have to say, that sounds really bad, actually. That sounds actually quite anti-Semitic. It is John Murray Cuddy's audacious theory that the latter was in fact the case, that among those thousands of 19th century European Jews newly admitted to the mainstream of European Christian cultural and social life, these three refused to pay the price: conformity to the mores and manners of Gentiles, with their emphasis on appearance and standardized civility. The three he's referring to: Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, and Claude Levi-Strauss. What better defense is there against society, asks Cuddy, than attack? And so they did. Freud, Marx, and Strauss drew upon their genius to construct theories calculated to tear away at what each felt was the superficial mask of Western Christian superiority. And those of you asking, so a neo-Nazi? Yes, 10,000%. This guy is an anti-Semitic fucker, just as an FYI.
Strauss were trying to square assimilating into modern culture. On top of this, how many of the theories they were developing were themselves attempts to recreate the ghetto culture on an international scale? The ghetto was a society without pronounced social class, a theocracy with no military, no privacy or politeness. They had enormous welfare to take care of the poorer members, while everyone belonged to a highly constrictive society which controlled their every action, with enormous mutual social trust. In the ghetto, things worked since it was such a small, cohesive community, bound together by a strong...
The Jews with their massive brains just couldn't understand larger societies? What are you talking about?
Religion. Look, we just described communism, and you could see Marxism as an attempt to turn the entire world into a Jewish-style ghetto community. The Jews...
Oh my god. It's so late in the evening for me to be doing this. Something I thought of is that wokeness is an attempt to make an entire ideology built off of civility. Civility is the Western context. In the Western context, is very Christian in its moral code. Basically, to treat others with respect as if they're children of God. In other societies, it's based off of honorifics or shame-based culture based off of hierarchy. Lots of 19th century and early 20th century thinkers thought about civility a lot, given it was more carefully formulated back then. When the old type of politeness died, it morphed into leftism and became the same demographic which pushed it. Or the Presbyterian school, Marx also pushed wokeness. Wokeness has the idea that if we externalize the idea of racial civility, we will end all hatred or war. This is a very weird and feminine form of autism, in that it's conflating the definition of something with the thing itself, which is a great flaw of modernity. Women tend to be more attached to civility or wokeness due to being more sensitive, and also the law of the jungle. Dude is fucking nuts.
Were frequently perturbed by the idea of civility, or the politeness that West Europeans prized so deeply a century ago.
Also, unrelated, hire me to voice act in your video games, please. I would love to do that.
They were all convinced it was some kind of lie or sham, and they faced enormous neuroses about not fitting in with the society. What they failed to realize is that European culture is fundamentally aristocratic, in which politeness stemmed from a culture of heroic individualism.
What the fuck are you talking about? Individualism by nature can't be heroic.
In which you had courtesy, so you wouldn't get murdered for insulting someone's honor. Jewish culture had no concept of martial honor, and so always writes it up as repression, with Freud being the most notable example. Fun fact, the ordeal of civility likes to say that Freud's id was similar to the yid.
I was weirding you out. I was going for a different vibe. I was going for feminine, femme fatale villain vibes.
To show how much like the mind, the average recently assimilated Jew would put up a mask of civility
I'm sorry, just hearing the phrase "the assimilated Jew" makes me feel disgusting.
before making a mistake that showed his ghetto roots. These thinkers, although this doesn't include all Jews, never understood Western concepts of individualism, honor, heroism, nationalism, freedom, private property, and duty, since the Jews hadn't had enough military experience to cultivate these. When you're looking at mismatches between things anti-Semites criticize Jews doing, it's normally a disjoint relating to this.
Yeah. The things that anti-Semites do. Yeah.
Jewish culture tends to be built around following ideological principles, irrespective of actual world conditions, whether or not they make sense. For leftists of Jewish ancestry, they see this as furthering their religion of leftism, while for Western nationalists, it's the destruction of their nations. One wonders how the establishment of the first Jewish state in 2,000 years with Israel will change these dynamics. The Jews have spent so long wandering the world as a minority that now that they have to defend their own borders, as they've been very successful at doing, if Jewish thought and culture will see a profound shift towards those cultural traits which exist in other cultures. The Industrial Revolution was both the best and worst thing to happen to the Jews. First,
what the fuck, man? What is your deal? The Industrial Revolution is the best and worst thing that happened to Jewish people? What are you talking about? It hit everybody. It wasn't limited to the Jews. It was limited to Jewish people or like Christian people. Everyone got hit by it. In a sense, it was like a societal equalizer.
it pulled them out of the ghettos of Eastern Europe to global predominance. At the start of the Industrial Revolution,
it pulled them out of the ghettos into industrial dominance because they owned all of the factories, you see.
Almost
He's so fucking anti-Semitic, it's crazy.
all Jews in the world lived in small Eastern European communities, practically stuck in medieval theocracy. And over a period of decades, they were vaulted into the center and the greatest level of global predominance for modern civilization. And that shift is so rapid, it has to be traumatic up to a certain point. At the same time, as I alluded to before, it caused a psychological collapse in their own sense of self. It's kind of sad to see what happened to so many Jews with the Industrial Revolution. The industrial world itself is nihilistic, but for the Jews, it was more pronounced since they were so heavily psychologically dependent on a combination of religion and community. Jewish culture had accumulated an enormous amount of trauma from their history for obvious reasons. Culture and history affects people in a very profound way, etching itself.
This is one of the things you figure out as an anthropologist after reading the 1000th personality survey relating to culture. People are really not blank slates. If you get people even as close as Italian, Irish, German, or even subgroups of English American, you'll find pronounced cultural differences on almost everything passed down unthinkingly. Culture has to exist. The attempt to destroy culture just involves the creation of a new anti-culture. Culture indelibly affects your physical appearance, your occupation, your personality, your hobbies, how fast you drive, your income, crime rate, military service, aesthetic, and so many others. Even 100 years after immigrating to America, it's completely normal for Asian Americans to have values more in line with Asia than America. Lots of people see this as racist, but I see it as beautiful. It's human diversity through which, in each person, is the reflection of all their ancestors and everything they've lived through. Again, I need to emphasize this guy believes in divine bloodlines. And his entire idea here is, in fact, incredibly racist. The idea that, like, intrinsically, when you have a child, that child somehow, on a genetic level, has your culture embedded in them. And, like, the idea that your culture then dictates your physical appearance or what you do for a living, or like how fast you drive a fucking car. This is just nonsense. It's not rooted in any kind of science like this guy would like you to believe. This guy's just fucking nuts.
Into their bodies, minds, and souls. Thus, when both the all-consuming religious and community structure fell apart, these very intelligent Jewish thinkers were stuck as strangers in a alien Gentile world, apart from the old Jewish worldview, and with an enormous amount of cultural trauma. This is why you're looking at so many of the proponents of nihilism. It's frequently secular Jews, while you practically never see this behavior from religious Jews. On top of this, the Jews had faced so many centuries of discrimination at the hands of oppressive, nationalistic religious governments, you could see why it would be inside their self-interest to deconstruct those cultural and national institutions. In the last century, the industrial world is seeing social collapse for complex reasons, and the Jews were at the forefront of this.
Oh, God.
You're looking at so many nationalistic religious.
The reason the industrial world is collapsing is effectively that the depersonalization of urban industrial society is too inhuman, that the people involved are silently rebelling by not having children. There's no children to fuel the cogs of the machine. This shows that people are not predominantly motivated by money, in that the wealthiest society in history is also the most miserable by any given metric you'd pick, whether mental health, birth rate, suicides, collapsing relationships, or family formulation. And collapsing religion. A society which does not have a culture will not procreate, given there's no reason to. People need to be able to start seeing a family and living life itself as a heroic act. Otherwise, they'll just give up. This is why the pre-modern world was so obsessed with religion and culture, given they've seen empires rise and fall countless times already. They've studied that and found the things above to be the core truth. Meh.
Governments, you could see why it would be inside their self-interest to deconstruct those cultural and national institutions. In the last century, the industrial world is seeing social collapse for complex reasons, and the Jews were at the forefront of this trend.
Why diaspora Jews were affected more so by modernity's psychological Black Death than any other demographic. One, very high creativity and intellect, which is an opening to mind viruses. You thought you were safe from the pathetic biological viruses. You didn't even consider the vulnerabilities of the mind virus. 2. Not much emphasis around practicality as a virtue, which is what saved rural America. 3. They're incredibly urbanized. I would make this the biggest point. 4th. Which is why I included it first on this list. 4th, the shift from the ghettos of Eastern Europe to cities occurred within a single generation, which was too rapid to adjust. 5. Their religion was highly autistic and collectivist, so they struggled to maintain it outside the ghettos. Now, if you think about it, it doesn't make much sense to say that, but if you consider that Whatifalthist is an anti-Semite, it all makes sense! 6. Horrific cultural PTSD from their history, which meant the nihilism hit very quickly. 7. The horrors of the Holocaust destroying their previously strong faith in modernity. 8. They universally migrated to leftist cities and used their schools. That's right. It's me, Whatifalthist, letting you know that the Jews used your schools. Ooh. 9. These trends did not occur in Israel, which is really insulated, which suggests external threats, connection to the land, and community is strong. What if Alt Gargamel? 10 out of 10 comment right there. Thank you. Such a big oh no. Oh no, 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 no. You bad person. Thing have been called out by a drunk woman during a live stream. Care to take up Riverboat Jack in discussion? No. Why? This guy, okay, to be clear, I want to make something crystal clear. This guy would absolutely talk to me in a discussion, but like, I've seen him try to justify his ideas to other people in the past, and I want to make it really clear that like this guy is incapable of making an argument. He's incapable of actually arguing his position. He's just fucking crazy. And what happens when he's confronted about these ideas is that he runs away from them rhetorically and then just like throws whataboutisms out there like crazy. Like, he's not a guy I'm interested in talking to at all. Largely because he's kind of in his own little world, you know? He's like, Whatifalthist is just kind of like in his own little bubble. And like, he's not really capable of coming out of it. He's just, he's just gone, you know?
Reasons I explain in this text wall. Lots of modern leftist theory and philosophy were made by neurotic Jews in the mid-20th century.
Man, I love when all of leftist theory is made by neurotic Jews, so you don't have to actually engage with any of the substance of the ideas, you know? Kind of really emphasizing what I just said, you know?
Who experienced all of these sociological trends that would slam modernity earlier than other people, so they were able to articulate it for everyone else. What this means is that the Jews were some of the spokespeople involved for the issues of modernity, but they themselves were not the drivers. The problem is that too many of modernity's issues are seen in contexts that have no Jews at all, like China, Japan, or Eastern Europe.
That sounds really not great. I don't like that at all. How you put that. Let's not restate that again, please.
Today. This is not PC to say, but so many of the issues today are so overtly caused by toxic femininity, and they openly claim that too, that blaming the Jews as the underlying driver feels silly. It
is silly because they're not. The driver of these issues is capitalism and the majority of society, not like this imagined version. Like, I don't even know what to call this.
It feels like we're trying to deflect responsibility for the collapse of our own civilization to some...
Oh boy.
Group that's not even 1,000th of the world's population. Part of me wonders if the Jews aren't going to make it through the current era. Most American
If I have anything to say about it, they will. Like, Jesus Christ, dude.
Jews today are only loosely Jewish, and they
What? I'm sorry, I didn't know you could voluntarily relinquish your ethnic group. I didn't know that was a thing you could do. That's bizarre.
have one of the lowest birth rates of any group in the world in America.
How does that, so what?
Will modernity swallow Judaism in the way Hellenism tried to and failed? However, at the same time, I know that the Jews are going to make it. Israel is one of the highest birth rates and religiosity of anywhere in the industrialized world. On top of that, they've already made it 4,000 years so far. They can't afford to lose here. I think the best thing the Jews could do is go back to God.
Jesus Christ. Genuinely, remember when I maybe 15 minutes ago suggested you report this channel? Like, genuinely, I'm doing that again. Like, this guy's fucking unhinged and disgusting.
The thing is that Jewish people are so married to the Jewish religion that I don't think they can survive without it.
Every sentence gets worse. Every sentence gets worse. Becomes the worst.
The Jews have a long history, and if they give up now,
What's the timestamp? 51:19.
the game's going to get less interesting. The ones who are destroying society are the seculars, and so I've joked that putting pretty girls in Torah school could be a taxpayer service for societal psychological stability. Gotta grab some popcorn for the next 4,000 years. Who knows, maybe the Jews will make it to Alpha Centauri.
Alpha Centauri? What the fuck is that? That was the end of the video. Is this happy science? Holy shit! I'm real fucking sorry. That was happy science shit. I think that's Alcantara, the name of a deity in the happy science religious organization. Maybe the AI is wrong. But however, the top Google result outside of the AI results is, as the god of the earth, Alpha taught Earth's inhabitants to devote themselves to the teachings and made this the condition for them to become Earth people. Under the headline, Who is Alcantara? I don't know how to parse this information. I know that Alpha Centauri is a star, but Alcantara is a deity in the happy science cult that we have been talking about and deconstructing over like the last month. Wait, your position, Rainbow Krampus, is that he just mispronounced Alpha Centauri? Yeah, but Centauri is different than Centauri. You know? I don't know. Maybe he has a vid on it. Maybe. I'm really disturbed by that. And I don't know what to do with the information we've discovered while going through this, but that was like genuinely, this guy needs help, you know? This guy's not okay. And like, I know I've had a number of shots, but like, even though I'm tipsy, that guy's not okay. And I know we all knew this because we covered this, but like, goddamn.
Rudyard is the reincarnation of Ryuho Agawa confirmed.
You know, that would maybe be the least surprising development in our coverage of happy science and Whatifalthist. That would maybe be the least surprising thing ever. Like, if he provided himself to the cult, y'all know, like, he would believe what they tell him. Y'all know that they would believe what they tell him. And, like, it would just be a unification. of two different communities. Rudyard equals Ryu Ho. Pepe Sylvia. Can't explain that. Indeed. God. All right. I don't know. That was incredibly anti-Semitic. It was incredibly disgusting. It was incredibly ahistorical. It was not backed up by facts and science for the vast majority of it. And I do just have to throw out there, if you got anything out of this video, like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I don't know if this will wind up being a segment, because this fucking sucked to watch. Just as a person doing the content, maybe you guys enjoyed it. I don't know. I hope so. But like, yeah, what are the comments like? That's a good question. Glad to see you covering an uncontroversial topic for a change. This video was promised to be demonetized 3,000 years ago. I'm just going to go into my secret tunnel underneath the streets of Brooklyn to talk. Make it out of the tunnels with this one. The coins from this video will all be clipped. You know, it's mostly anti-Semitism, you know. This is like the Avengers Endgame of the Whatifalthist Civilization videos. Imagine watching these videos and feeling like that. Honestly, this is the first good comment. So were they barely literate hill tribes, or were they the smartest people on earth, centuries more intelligent than their neighbors? You know, excellent question. Your critical thinking is still functioning at some kind of level. Good job. I'm not going to read your username. Never mind. Riverboat Jack is okay, even tipsy. That fucker is not okay. That is 100% true. I am still, by the way, pretty rational, even when I get tipsy. But like, this guy is just beyond any kind of bounds of normalcy, you know? I don't know. Consider dropping some subs and donos on my channel, because, guys, this video took some goddamn work to make, and that sucked. That was like just kind of anti-Semitic as fuck and wasn't super fun. So please support the show. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I very much appreciate it. You guys help the channel grow, and you guys have been amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed my little voice acting little bits. I enjoyed doing them. You know, I got to develop some characters. It helped a little bit.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, dating, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.